to everybody. I can't do it. Crazy, I didn't break. Yeah. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay. Okay, there we go. From some destinations, okay. Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everybody. We want to welcome you to the table. Tonight, I am Delroy Brooks, and tonight we are going to have a discussion with some young people hosted by Donovan Childs, associate pastor of the University Church. But I am just going to be managing comments, so I'm just going to get out the way, and we're going to let the conversation roll as it relates to social justice, our church's response, or lack thereof. So, with that said, I'm going to jump off of this, and I'm going to introduce our host for the evening, our host with the most, my man, Brother Donovan Childs. What's good, Don D?
Hey, what's going on, brothers and sisters out there? Hopefully you're ready for some good conversation, some education for those of us who are in a different space, and we'll learn from our young people today, see things through their eyes, man. I'm excited.
All right. With that said, I'm going to just bring everybody else on screen. So we got Miss Aaliyah Payton. How you doing, Aaliyah?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We are
doing good.
Great. Good to see you. I'm going to bring in Brother Charles Aaron Dill. How you doing?
Good to see you.
We'll bring in Miss Kai Simone Hodges.
Hey.
And last but not least, Brother Kyle Smith. Say hey to the folks, Brother Kyle.
Hello.
All right,
Good to
and
be
now
here.
I'm going to take myself off screen. I'm handing over the reins to you, Brother Don Dees. You go ahead and make it happen, brother. Have a great conversation, everybody.
All right, all right. So I'm very interested to hear from you all, and I think one of the first things that would be really good if we could just get to know a little bit of background from you. I got the bios, but that's kind of boring to just read the bios off. So I want you to tell the people what you like to know about yourself, and we'll start from Sister Aaliyah.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Aaliyah Payton. I'm originally from San Bernardino, California, repping 16th Street. And now, currently, I live in Maryland. I teach third grade in Washington, D.C. And I consider myself an educator, activist, influencer, leader. And so I'm happy to be here tonight. So thank you for having me.
All right, all right. Let's move on over to you, Brother Charles.
Cool. Charles is my dad, but
Oh, sorry.
Charles Aaron.
Sorry, what's that? Aaron.
It's okay. I'm also from San Bernardino, California. Attended the same church, 16th Street. Good to see you. I see Pastor King. I saw Pastor Henry in the chat. So good to see y'all as family. I currently work for Assemblymember Jose Medina, doing some local politics stuff, and I've worked for the Democratic Party before this. And then before that, I was at Oakwood under the direction of President Kyle Smith. So happy to see him on this call too. Yeah, happy to be here.
All right. Let's go to you, Sister Kai Simone.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Kai Simone, but I go by Kai most of the time. I am from Oakland, California, and I'm currently a senior theology major at Oakland University.
All right. Oh, yeah, the Bay Area representing. All right, Brother Kyle.
Hey, everyone. My name is Kyle Smith, originally from San Diego, California, America's finest city. And so very proud to be from that part of California. And God has blessed me to be able to work in Riverside, California. I'm currently an associate pastor at Mount Rubidoux SDA Church. And before that, I was at Andrews most recently. And before then, my heart, Oakland University down in Huntsville, Alabama, a wonderful HBCU institution.
All right, so we got the Oakwood connection rolling here, huh? All right, so we talking tonight, this evening, about social justice. And before we kind of get into some of the questions, I want to see where is our mind, where is our thinking at. So when social justice, when you hear that term, what comes to mind? Words, phrases, situations. What comes to your mind when you're hearing this term or when you're thinking about social justice? And anybody can start. Just go ahead and jump on in, and we'll just have a natural conversation.
I'll start, sure. When I hear the term social justice, I think revolutionaries. I think of folks fighting for the freedoms of not just one people, for all people. That's what I hear when I hear those words, social justice.
Yes. I would say I would think of disadvantage, equity, equality, and fairness.
For me, when I hear social justice, I just think I kind of flip the words around to be justice within society. And so, environmental justice would be making sure that our planet is healthy for all people. I think that to make sure that the justice system works for everyone in society, not just a favorite group.
Yeah, for me, I agree with Aaliyah. She said equity, and that's one of the main points of social justice for me, making sure that everybody has the same opportunity and the help that they need to get where they should be.
Now, so we're coming at this, West Coast Worship Collaborative. So of course we've got our eyes on the church and how the church functions. So how has your church experience prepared you for dealing with social justice issues? Has it been good? Have you found some lacking, or what has your experience been in just the preparation or the experience from the church?
Yes. Well, I'll start. I would say that I would feel unprepared as far as coming from the church and moving into a direction to speak out against social injustices, in a sense of also feeling a little bit not at ease, a little worried, concerned, in a sense of also silence sometimes. I believe coming from the church, a lot of things are silenced, and ignored and not directly addressed, in a sense of just saying, okay, well, this is the issue. Let's think of a solution. It's more of a submissive type of address and approach, in a sense of, okay, well, this is the issue, but let's pray about it. There's no direct action to get something accomplished. And so those are my perspective. I actually had to, kind of expand my environment outside of the church to have a better address and a better approach addressing certain issues and different discussions about social justice in order to get something accomplished and see different perspectives, because I didn't feel like I was properly prepared to address certain issues that are related to our community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would just piggyback off that. We grew up in the same place. But I'd also add that San Bernardino was wild. San Bernardino, anything, it doesn't matter if it's Sabbath, Sunday, anything could happen in San Bernardino. There's folks dancing down the aisles, in the pews. It was always something new. But I don't believe the church really prepared us for speaking up for really anything. And I know I don't think that's a specific thing to like SDA churches. I think that's the church thing overall. I know Malcolm X said that the most segregated hour in America is high noon on Sunday. It's a huge issue that the church sweeps under this really small rug, and they try to make it seem like it's not there. But we really don't do a good job of teaching us to speak about anything that has any sort of level of being comfortable is out. At least that's what my experience was.
Has been your experience. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Brother Kyle, Sister Kai.
For me, I would say growing up, I had a similar experience. At my local church, I would say social justice wasn't, necessarily preached heavily from the pulpit, as is probably common in most churches. Growing up, the one difference I would say is that when elementary, I did go to a Christian school. I mean, it wasn't Adventist; it was a Baptist elementary school, and I felt like they taught our history, and they made sure that we as young kids knew like what happened during the civil rights era. And so definitely I wish it would have happened at my local church, but growing up, that religious organization, that Baptist church school, they did present that information. And then not necessarily from the church specifically, but once I got to college and in grad school at Oakwood and at Andrews, actually, I saw a lot of either pastors or professors or leaders kind of getting up front and saying something. And I think it's partially just due to the climate of the country currently right now, that maybe they felt more comfortable. It definitely wasn't happening like maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I've been grateful to see that shift. And so, when I come to my current church, Mount Rubidoux, they've been, before I got there, it's been active in the community. I definitely think we can all do better. We're probably not at the same level of activism that MLK had and during the early civil rights movement, but thankfully I'm glad that our church is being a little bit more proactive. Even having a conversation like this, I think probably wouldn't have happened 5 or 10 years ago.
Okay.
The church, social justice was pretty much a silent subject. They didn't talk about it. They didn't really talk about the history unless it was Black History Month. But that was just the basic stuff. Or Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. They fought for our rights. But other than that, they didn't really say much. And I even had some professors say that social justice is a political thing, and that as Christians we shouldn't be involved. So it really did nothing to prepare me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, okay. So now that you said it, since you said it, I'm gonna jump to a question I had later. But I have often heard that there is that idea in the church that says, okay, we should be focused on the mission of saving everybody so that they can go to heaven. We don't have time to focus on these political issues and things like that. What is your sort of initial response to hearing that, and what suggestions do you have as a rebuttal for someone who's holding that that viewpoint?
I would say, aren't we winning souls on earth? You know, in a sense of if we just dismiss the issues within our community, if we dismiss the brutality within our community that people that we come in contact with every day are facing, what does that say about Christians? What does that say about us as people? You know, we show that we don't care if we don't speak about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in a sense of, and we want to win souls. We want to bring people to Christ, but we continue to hide behind the walls of the church sometimes, you know, but we're not going out to addressing these issues that people within our community are facing, and then something that we could potentially face as well. And so, yes, we have to prepare spiritually, you know, for the next level, you know, but in a sense, we are living here on earth, and we have to be able to make sure the people here on earth as well know that, okay, we care about the issues that you're facing, and we want to make sure that you feel comforted, that you know that God is here protecting you as well, and that, you know, you can just rely on him. And then also in a sense that I'm going to be here fighting for you while we're here on earth right now. You know, if we continue to keep looking to, okay, well, we got to make our way to heaven, we lose sight of everything that's happening right in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, go ahead. Yeah.
When I hear comments like that, I think the phrasing is, you know, they are so heavenly bound that they're no earthly good.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you know, if there's a woman who is trying to feed her kids, or a father is trying to feed their kids, they don't really care about the 28 fundamental beliefs in that moment. You know,
Mm-hmm.
They don't care, you know, that we shouldn't be eating pork, or, you know, all these other things that I think are valuable. But if it's, you know, between you know, having anything on the table and starving themselves, of course they're going to be focusing on those other issues. And so I think it goes hand in hand with it. You know, if people aren't meeting their current immediate needs, you know, hearing about Christ is of no importance to them. And I don't think we should be helping people to feed them Christ. I think we should be helping people because of Christ, and they'll see Christ through our actions.
Mm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anybody else jumping in?
I would just add on, you know, Yeshua flipped tables. He fought for social justice, just like any revolutionary that we have to date that wrote any books. Like Yeshua was right up there with them. And also to add on, I think Aaliyah mentioned this earlier, but silence is complicit. So if you're being silent, you're not just, you know, just being a neutral stance. You are complicit to whatever the action is going on that you're not speaking up against or for. So it's a privilege to feel that way. And I don't have that privilege. If somebody's out there fighting for Black lives, I'm going to be right there with them because I am a Black life. And if somebody doesn't feel the same, then that's on them. That's between them and their God. But as for me and my house, you know, we're going to follow what Yeshua's his example was, which was being an advocate for everyone, especially the folks that were, you know, underprivileged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely that it falls on I don't think it falls on it being a political issue, because if we're Christians and we're following the life of Christ and we're trying to imitate his life, then we should be loving people. And how can you say that you love people when you look at them, you see them struggling, you see that their physical needs aren't being taken care of, you see that they're being mistreated? How can you say that you follow Christ and you love like Christ loves if you do nothing for them? If you just leave them where they're at? Christ didn't do that. He saw people that were hungry, he fed them. He saw people that had illnesses. Yes, he took care of their illness before he tried to preach to them, before he told them the word of God. And so someone told me that if you're speaking to someone and their physical need isn't met, they're not going to be able to hear you spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. Now, so we kind of talked about the church preparation, but let's even go a little bit. Let's take one question for the. I saw Dr. King said she asked, how do you suggest in the church we can prepare our young people better for facing issues of social justice? What are some suggestions that we can give for that?
I would say, start the conversation first, a sense of having, discussions like this. I always say the first step is to talk about it, address the issue. The next step is to, continue to make a financial impact as well. But, that's more of, okay, we're going to donate to this organization, or we're going to, fund this program, that tackles these issues. And then also contacting those who can make a major impact, as far as politicians, getting politicians involved with the church. I know that, we mentioned before, as far as, church and politics shouldn't mix. But when it's more of a social more of a social issue where it's community issue, that's not just politics, and social issues do influence politics. Because if we are saying, okay, needs to be done, we need to be able to contact those politicians who can get that done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that we all believe in voting, right? And so if politics isn't a part of the church, then Christians shouldn't believe in voting, So in a sense, and so I believe that we need to kind of follow a step process, starting with the conversation, then, adopting an organization or a program that we can fund, as a church that's close, and then that even wins souls right there, giving them involved, saying that, us as a church, we care about your movement, and then contacting those individuals who can make a major difference, and kind of having that step process to say, we're actually going to make a major impact in addressing these issues from start to finish.
Yes.
And another option I think that could work is listening to your youth. I've been really amazed just seeing like the Instagram accounts of the young people at my church, and anytime with the protest, like they were active, they were making political posts and statements, and none of them could vote, but they wanted to make sure that their voices were heard, and so they have opinions and thoughts, and they're researching these issues, with great earnest, and so. I think uplifting those voices. Gen Z. Those who are currently, I guess, the young people at our churches, and then also maybe finding specific avenues that we could work on. No one church or person or group can fix everything, but maybe if in your church you're like, we're going to dedicate our time and energy to helping people who've been wrongly convicted, or we just find one family who has a tradition, or like their family's been incarcerated. Like, I think if we focus on it, it makes it a lot more tangible. It makes it a lot easier to relate to and to handle and get our grips on.
Mm-hmm. Jump in.
I think that just taking time to educate the young people when they're young, just letting them know what social justice is in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And then taking time to practice it within the church, because I feel like if they're practicing it in the church, to take it outside of the church and practice it elsewhere, out on the streets, in the community.
Yeah, I think I can't really add too much to what everyone said. I think everyone kind of hit the nail right on the head. Also, shout out Miss Novella. I see her in the chat. She's a light. She's a light. Love her.
All right. Now, when in your how was it growing up in your homes? Did you have homes that were justice minded, or was that something that you learned later after you left home? What was that part of your experience?
So your question is,
so in your homes, were social justice issues talked about? Were you educated through your family, or was it something that after you kind of came out and you were either in college or doing whatever in life, then you kind of had those sensors more more as part of your life later on?
I'd say personally, my mother is a very strong woman, a very strong Black woman. I was born her third year at Spelman, her second child. This woman, I can't say enough good things about her, but she's definitely made the effort to teach us and educate us about our people, our history, and I can't thank her enough for that. Also, growing up, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like, what are you going to be when you grow up? It was like, what HBCU are you going to attend? You know, like that's a big portion of culture that I don't think many people of color can see, you know, because they're just so focused on whether it be like a paycheck to paycheck thing or a job thing. I think that's a very it's a very privileged way to think. But I really appreciate the amount of education she put into each and every one of us that really, you know, put us on the path for our lives today. And I appreciate that. I think Black people, because of melanin and because of the blessing that we have on our lives, are the most amazing people on the planet. So that's something that every Black child should know because it's empowering. Not just for social justice, just for you waking up every morning and breathing in the Holy Spirit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hear you, man.
I would say in my household, it was very dismissed. It was a sense of, okay, I mean, I love my parents, you know. Now they see, okay, well, Aaliyah, you're speaking some real stuff, you know, because they see my vlogs, they see, you know, everything that I post. And it's like, okay, so I'm inspiring them to speak out against certain issues. Because before it's kind of like policing myself. You know, we were very, you know, stay quiet, don't talk too loud, you know, don't upset them, you know, in a sense of just very policing yourself and policing your culture. And I felt that way growing up in California, not just with my household, but within my school, you know, the schools I attended as well. And so I had to really find a sense of myself and know, you know, appreciate myself as a Black woman, and then continue to push forward and say, you know what? This is what I appreciate about myself. I appreciate my culture. I appreciate my heritage. And I'm going to stand up for those individuals who look like me, who are disadvantaged, who may not have the opportunities or the resources to advance in life. And so I had to kind of learn that just experiencing different things, moving out of that that California mindset of, you know, just stay in California. You know, I had to go expand and move to DC, move to Maryland to see that there's other ways to approach these situations than just, you know, dismissing them. And I can say by my grandmother, who on my dad's side, she is very, I call her a Blacktivist. And so she's very like, you know, pro-Black in the sense of, okay, well, you better know that if someone says something to you, you better stand up for yourself, you know. So I kind of adopted that spirit from her instead of continuing to police myself. And I even, you know, address my mom sometimes and say, you know what, why are you feeling like you need to police yourself or, you know, dismiss your own culture in order to make someone else feel comfortable? Or why do you feel like if you stand up, you are, you know, you are creating problems? Like, no, if you stand up for yourself, you're not creating a problem. You are addressing the problem and you're going to find a solution to it, you know? And so now I'm teaching, you know, my students that I teach, you know, even just me expressing that on social media, you know, when I go back home, it's inspiring my little sisters, my mom, my dad to speak out against these issues as well and not just ignore them. And so that's what I can honestly say about my background, my household, even the school I attended. Just a short little story that when I was in high school, I was Redlands High School. I was walking down to a Chipotle. Me and my friend, we go into a Chipotle. Someone yells out, "No Black people inside. No Black people allowed." And so that was a sense of, I was 16. It was like the really first direct, more blunt racism I faced and living in California. But at that moment, I felt just, I had to police myself. Oh, well, don't say anything because they're going to think you're too ghetto. Well, don't say anything because they're going to say you're loud. Or, you know, it's like at that moment, I felt like I wish I had the spirit that I do now. So I could have said something at that moment. But I had to break out of that California bond or that California mindset of, okay, let me just water down my culture. Let me not speak too loud. Let me not address these issues. Let me just look past it. It's just a joke. Oh, they didn't mean it that way, you know? And I have to take it for what it is and say, you know what, this is a problem. This is how I felt towards it, and I'm going to address it. And so I think now moving forward, that's the type of mindset I want to, you know, continue to spread to my family and my students.
For me at my household, it wasn't something like explicitly expressed. You know, the general principles, you know, Christian themes of being, you know, equality for everyone, but not specific to our racial needs as a people or for those who are disadvantaged and community at large.
Mm-hmm. So I want to jump on, you know, what Aaliyah is saying there, and I think it goes really well with the question that Dr. King is asking here, because we do find a lot of times where we've got to do, like you said, this policing thing, or you know, you got to sort of keep it down and whatnot. And her question is, you know, it seems that different generations see social justice differently. Do you notice that? Do you see that in yourself? And you know, how do we bridge the gap? How do we start to make some differences in that regard?
I'd agree with that for sure. I think overall, I don't want this to sound any way. Don't take this any way. I don't want anybody watching to take this any way. I think we're less afraid now than we have ever been before. I think there is less of a stigma to ruin somebody's day, you know? And I think that's great. I think we need to do that more. I think we need to be more comfortable in ourselves and not change ourselves for whatever room we go into. I think it's important that we bring ourselves with us everywhere we go. And that's my entire family coming with me. So I'm speaking on behalf of them. You know, I'm not just talking for me. So I know what I'm representing. Yeah, that's all I would say.
Yes. So thank you, Ms. Butler, and thank you, Ms. I think Hill as well. I appreciate it. And so I would say the bridge that gap is one, to have a conversation. I'm a talker. I'm going to address how I feel. I'm going to tell you how I feel, and I'm gonna listen to your perspective as well. And so like I mentioned, as far as like with my mom growing up, in a sense of that mindset of policing yourself, in a sense of, you know, that's based on confidence too, in a sense of, you know, knowing yourself and self-esteem. And if you say, you know what, I know who I am, I love who I am, I know, you know, that God, he created me to be this confident individual, that I'm going to speak out when I see something wrong, you know, not just within my own life, but within anyone else's life, you know, as well. And so in a sense of encouraging, you know, if you do have parents that are kind of that more conservative, where they're like, okay, well, don't say anything. Well, I'll tell my mom or my, you know, whoever who's my relative respectfully, well, I'm going to stand up and advocate for those who don't feel comfortable speaking out, you know? And so I will be that voice. If you don't feel comfortable speaking out, if you feel like, you know, it's going to jeopardize your job, I know a lot of careers are jeopardized when individuals do speak out. And so I can see that being the issue. And so I'll say, okay, well, you don't have to speak out, but I'll speak out on your behalf, you know? And so kind of, you know, taking that responsibility as well, if as young Americans, young millennials, you know, a sense of, okay, and I know even living in DC, a lot of younger individuals, millennials are out there protesting. You don't see a lot of individuals within 45 to 55 age range or 40 to 50 age range out there protesting. And so I believe a lot of those young individuals are taking that responsibility on behalf of their parents, saying, you know what, you went through this before, you know, even my grandmother, I'm not going to expect my grandmother who's 70 something to go out there and and protest in the street. I'm gonna say, you lived through segregation. So I'm gonna speak on your behalf now. And so I think we should, you know, and that creates unity as well, in a sense of, all right, I'm here standing for you. I'm standing in place of you, you know, because I know that maybe it's too hard for you to do right now. And that's understandable. You know, I'm not going to force you to do something that makes you uncomfortable, but I just know that I'm gonna speak out on your behalf if you feel this way as well. So we should advocate for each other.
I just want to add, my granddad, he's like 80 something. He was out there protesting. Shout out to him. Shout out to you, Michael, where you're at, granddaddy. Love you, man.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of them. You know, just that principle of finding your armor and fighting in it. And so the older generations, you know, this may not be the type of fight that they're itching for, or maybe it is their fight, but they can't get on the shield and sword in the same way that we can. You know, it's no hate for them. You know, like we all have to do our own part. And for some of them, you know, I wasn't living there, but maybe their fight was just being, you know, that educated Black person in the law firm and showing others that, you know, that they deserve to be in that space. But for us now, it's no, I'm going to wear my hair out the way I want to. Like you should already be accustomed to me being in this space, but now you're going to be accustomed to me being my full authentic self, and you're going to see me in the streets. Like I think with each generation, we're able to advance it to different levels, and even Gen Z and the generation that comes after them, I think hopefully they'll be carrying on this fight in a different way that we're currently not doing it. Those areas where we're not addressing, those areas that we're not currently fighting for as much as we can be or should be. Hopefully, God willing, they're picking up that mantle and like, you know what, we're going to address this spotlight because it's still, there's still a disadvantaged community that still needs support, that still needs to be uplifted. And so I think just recognizing what armor you have and what space and time you're living in is extremely important.
Yes, man. Context matters. I gotta tell you. I mean, listen. Let me just keep it really real, real quick. Black people are dope. If anybody didn't know, we're just gonna put that out in the airwaves.
But now.
So we're just gonna get that out in the air. And I personally, so I'm 40 years old, and I have found that later on, more recently, probably within the past 8 or so years, have I felt more, I guess, I don't know. I almost want to say it's like, I feel like the power of the melanin is like coming in. I don't know what it is, man. It's just like, it was over on the side in a jar and then somebody injected it, and I think it was the young people that decided, yeah, we're going to have our culture and we're going to wear our hair and we're going to just be ourselves unapologetically. I mean, you got, the terms like melanin popping, all of these things. These are things that came out of people saying, look, man, we need to inform you. You have been taking our culture because you knew it was dope already, but now we're going to go ahead and take that ownership back, and we are going to put you on blast for trying to take it. And I think that's something we need to be proud of. I think that's something that we're starting to see more in many different places and spaces. And so I just want to give my own props to you all for taking those different spaces and bigging up the ancestors, but also taking and carrying on the mantle, as well. So let's talk a little bit about how we approach these ideas of injustice. As you're thinking about it, maybe we'll do a little bit of help to kind of get the minds going. And I did see a question on here where somebody was asking for recommendations, if y'all know any books for people that are trying to get their kids going in terms of understanding social justice issues or just kind of getting their mind around that. Y'all have any recommendations?
Yeah, for sure. How old is this child?
I'm not sure. Let's just go the broad range, or what your recommendation would be.
I always, my main recommendation book that I tell people to read, tell folks to read, is Huey Newton's Revolutionary Suicide. This man founded the Black Panther Party. And then in the very first chapter, he gives you the whole overview of the entire party. There's a lot of misconceptions about the party, about what it was, about what it did, and the help that it provided to the community, help that we still see today, like the free lunch program. So I would recommend that book just to give a good first kind of, here you go, first knowledge of what revolutionary life is like and what that could look like.
And let me jump on that while you guys are thinking of your other recommendations. Just for anybody who didn't know, Kai left us right now. She's having some signal problems, but her church, Market Street, was actually one of the churches where Black Panther Party did the breakfast program. Wow. So if anybody is confused on whether the church was involved with the Black Panther Party,
that's awesome.
They actually hosted breakfasts there. So, and there are some of the members that are still around, some of the charter members, they actually remember working with the Market Street Seventh-day Adventist Church. So awesome. Let that sit in your spirit as well. All right, you guys have any other book recommendations?
Yes, I would recommend Make Change by Sean King. And so I just got that book, And oh, there we go. Okay. And so I just got that book and I love it because he is very, his word, he's very proactive. And also he is very confident in what he is trying to accomplish and goes throughout the steps to accomplish it. And so he's very credible to me. You know, I know a lot of people have their mixed opinions about him as a activist, but his book, I appreciate his book. And then also Hair Love by Matthew, I forgot the last name, but Hair Love is a children's book and is appreciating, you know, young girls' hair, young Black girls' hair, and, you know, that self-confidence, that self-esteem as well. And so that's definitely a great book for young kids to, you know, embrace their culture, embrace their Blackness, you know, their melanin. And so that's it's a great book to inspire your kids to, you know, love themselves and appreciate who they are.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm not sure. You know, I guess depending upon the age, it would. I'm not sure how interesting it would be for them as kids. But when I was in college, as a textbook for a class, it was the Seventh Adventists and the Civil Rights Movement. And so it just kind of it goes through a history of where not the church as a whole, definitely not the church as a whole, but like individuals and, you know, specific churches have been active in the movement. I think, you know, if we're speaking primarily to like a Seventh Adventist audience, I think it would be helpful to know that this isn't something that is out of place or doesn't gel with our religion. But, you know, a few people throughout our church's history have been active and have been present in that fight. And then also, I just went online because I think Google is like one of our best helps. And there's a website called socialjusticebooks.org. And so if you go on that website, they have a long list of books that work depending upon your child's age. And so I definitely think like presenting options is probably most important because there are a variety of issues within, you know, the Black identity and culture that, you know, people draw attention to. And so maybe they're a sports fan or they're having issues with accepting, you know, their own identity, or maybe it's the skin complexion issue, you know, they're darker or lighter than their friends. And so I think finding a book that speaks to their current, you know, place and time is of the utmost importance.
Yeah.
And also one more book. I was aside of Shakur's autobiography. This is not for children. I would say you have to be at least 10, 11. But this is a book that everybody should read. Everybody.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these things too, parents can do it with their kids. You know, I don't know if y'all had this, but I remember my parents told me, look, you can go to prayer meeting, or if you don't want to go to prayer meeting with me, you're going to watch this Roots trilogy right now. Come home, you better be able to answer these questions. And so I knew why Kunta's foot got cut off, and, you know, all the little spots, man, because all those things help with that. I saw a question that just came up. I don't know if you can put that question back up, Del. That was it was a good question, but I don't remember exactly. Did you guys catch that?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the N word for a minute. With the stereotypes, what are you thinking here?
That's funny because Aaron, you can go first. You go first, Aaron. I see you ready. I see you ready.
I gotta go.
You got it, please.
Okay, so it's crazy because this conversation this topic comes up a lot. You know, I discuss this many times, and even today, there's this post that I was commenting on, and this one young lady, she called this Black man the N-word, and so he was like, "Please don't call me that," and she's like, "It's not that deep." It's like, okay, well, if he prefers not to be called that, then you don't call him that. And now I had an issue with the N-word, whether it's the slang version, whether it's the more, derogatory term. I had an issue with it. I don't call other individuals it, other Black folks it. I don't call myself it. I don't want to be called it at all. But I understand the history behind it, of the sense of, like a unifying word within the Black community, a sense of, oh yeah, that's my friend, that's my brother, and so that's like a unifying term. Now, of course, the hypocrisy with it in a sense of, okay, well, white folks can't use it because, or white folks or anyone who's not Black can't use it because it's a sense of, it's a derogatory term. And with that being said, I don't agree with any race using it, period. But it's understanding the culture, understanding that people use it in a sense that unify each other. I'm not too pressed to like really continue to talk about it, to continue to address them. If they use, if two Black men, they use it on each, use it to each other, I'm not gonna say, okay, hey, you shouldn't be using that. I will understand, okay, that's a form of unity, and I'm not going to criticize how they communicate with each other, but as far as moving forward, I think we can identify ourselves as something greater than just the N-word. We don't have to take on that label because that label was placed on us. It wasn't something that we created. It was something that was given to us. And yes, we have to tweak it a little bit to use it to our advantage, but still, I'm not going to use something that my oppressor once, called me. And so I to each to his own, a sense of, if you feel comfortable using it with your friends to communicate, so be it. If you feel like that's a different definition of it, so be it. But if someone doesn't want to be addressed that way, then don't address them that way. And, we shouldn't have an issue with that. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah. Jump on in, fellas.
I would just say, in short, I won't lie and say I haven't used it. But it's not something that I would encourage other people to use, especially if you're not Black. You're not going to say it in my presence without getting at least a side eye or a little talk that this is not appropriate. There was even it wasn't the N-word, but there was like some word that my friend had said, and I was like, and it wasn't the N-word, but it was there's like a racial tone to it that he wasn't aware of. But I was like, that word's not acceptable. Like, you're gonna need to find another way to like express, our friendship and how close you think we are. And even he wasn't even using it maliciously. He didn't know, but he was going to know, and he was not going to use that word uneducated in the future. There was an author at the Atlantic who did a really good there's a video on why white fans of hip hop can't use the N-word. The analogy that he gave, yes, so I can't pronounce I don't think I pronounced his name correctly. I didn't want to butcher his name. And then I just in our chat, I just sent the link to his video. But one of the arguments that he gave was just like, his wife, his wife and her friends, like they, throw away casual names, to one another that he would never, ever use to call his wife. That's his wife, but like he still knows that words have power, and there are some things that you don't step across that line. And then I think TV has also done a good job in some ways of explaining that. In Blackish, Girlfriends, probably every Black sitcom, they probably have at least one episode of, kind of addressing the N-word and how it's just not okay for others to say it, or maybe even for us to say it. There's a variety of opinions within our culture.
Right.
Man, the only thing I would add, these two great answers. The only thing I would add is, Black people are so dope. We're so dope. We took this disgusting word, this disgusting predicament that we happen to be in for centuries, and we made it into something cool, man. Like what kind of mindset do we have that we can just do that, and the entire world wants to be a part of it, and they can't. But it's knowing who you are. It's knowing that we're not niggas. We're royalty. Actually, we are kings and queens, and that doesn't mean that we have like full empires. It means that the God that made the entire universe is helping us breathe. It's helping us open our nostrils. It's keeping our blood flowing. It's creating melanin in us. But there's a huge issue with colorism. There's a huge issue with just tons of words that we say. Like people say brother to me, like hey brother. I feel like that's just, I see that the same way as the N word. Like I'm not brother. I am myself. You know what I mean? Like if you have to create these words to fill this gap, I don't need to be around you. But I would say it's education. At the end of the day, like Sister Kai was talking about, it's education. I would implore everybody watching to know what the Willie Lynch letters are, know what colorism is, and then you can make that determination as to whether you want to say the N word or not. Myself personally, I'll use it around close friends because that's the environment that we were comfortable in growing up. But it's not something I want to use in the future. It's not something that I want to give to my children because I know who I am. I know if it's my seed, I know who that is. You know what I mean? So I don't need to call him the N word because he's not. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about when I look in the mirror and see myself. But that's all I don't know. We're just dope. Black people are dope, man. That's all I can say.
Now I got a question. I want Aaliyah for you to start off answering this, and then gentlemen jump in on here. I remember when I was young, we used to have, and this is a memory from first grade, and there was a book. There were these set of books. They were like these history books, and one of them was this book on Christopher Columbus and how great Christopher Columbus was. Since you're in the education world, how are they dealing with things like this now? Because we're talking about education and trying to educate our people. Hey, all right, back in the house. Welcome back. So what I'm asking here, kind of taking the education approach, and we're looking at with the younger generations, like the children. How are people in education, or maybe even just your personal approach, Aaliyah? How are you all dealing with that now when so many conversations are coming out about, hey, we're not going to be celebrating Christopher Columbus Day. We're going to be celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day now. How are you approaching those things? And then just go ahead and start off. How are you approaching?
Yeah, so thank God I am at a majority Black school, so I get away with teaching Black history. Like our unit for social studies for third grade is learning about the history of Washington D.C. So I showed them, a little video about African Americans within Washington D.C. during the early 1900s. So because that's relatable. And so, like I said, thank God I'm teaching at a majority Black school because I need to find things that relate to them. They can't relate to Christopher Columbus. They can't relate to what's called Eleanor Roosevelt, or they can't relate to George Washington. It's like if they related to George Washington, I would have to tell them the ugly truth. In a sense. So within our school, my school does a great job of adopting Black culture, Black history all year round. And so because we have Black administration, and that's one thing that's why I decided to work in Washington, in DC, in Northeast DC, because I wanted to be around my culture, my people, and because I didn't have that growing up. And I knew that these students need positive role models within their life. And so we as a school, like not even just my class, but as a school, we adopt Black culture, and we go down to the grit of not just with Martin Luther King, but with Madam C.J. Walker, just going down to deeper roots, understanding like, okay, well, yes, we did have a time in history where there was slavery, but that's not all Black history. It didn't start from slavery and then end up civil rights movement and then now 2020. It's like the whole Harlem Renaissance era, Black Wall Street, all that, we just skipped over that when I was growing up. And so we will do our students a disservice if we don't even share that with them, And so with my students, like I said, since I teach reading, language arts, and social studies, so I go into, as far as Black history, understanding, the importance of Black art and, Black performers to Black inventors, And it's funny because we were having a professional development meeting at my school, and they were looking up, or one of the leads, she was researching certain articles that the kids can read and answer questions to. So I was like, okay, are there any Black inventor articles? And so she types in Black inventors, and of course nothing shows up because it was like it was more a general platform that maybe everyone in the country uses. So I was like, okay, so then I go on my way to ask, are there any resources that we can use that really help our students understand Black culture, Black art, Black inventors, Black influencers? Is there resources? So I go out of my way to find those resources. Now, as far as if I was working at a predominantly white school, I don't think I would be able to get away with that. But even with my friend, he's a teacher as well. He teaches history in high school, at the high school level. And so he will tell me all the time that he gets in trouble with his administration because they don't want him teaching African culture. It's like, well, it's like the school doesn't have a problem with Roman culture or, Roman Empire. But then, when you try to teach African culture, there's a problem. It's like, and that's a sense of that systemic racism within the education, system, that institutionalized racism, and so it's like, all right, we need to break those barriers, and whether we have to do it ourselves, because I know at the top level, it may not get done, but as educators, as leaders, even if you're not just an educator, maybe if you tutor, or you coach or you mentor, breaking those barriers in a sense of giving your children an opportunity to learn about their history and really adopt it and resonate with it, because that's the most relatable content, is how they can really empower themselves and feel empowered and and feel inspired to be great African American, just great Black people in general. I always say, in a sense of within the community, sometimes kids only have a certain stereotype to look up to, whether it's the rapper trapper, or a sense of you're growing up within a religious background, the pastor. Okay. But in a sense of not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying you need to expand, saying that there's greater possibilities to life than just looking at that narrow view and say, I can only accomplish this way. I can only make money if I go down this route. We need to expand on that. And so my school does a great job doing that. Well, we do career days. Majority of Black professionals come in, from police officers to financial analysts, from entrepreneurs, so on and so forth. So our school does a great job of doing that. But I'll say, if you're not in a school, or if you do not, if your kids, nephews, nieces, daughters, so on and so forth, if they are not in a school that are appreciating Black culture, then, providing that to them some way, through watching movies, videos, books, providing that to them, because they have the right to know, and they have to relate to, their culture, and they have to be able to feel empowered and see that, okay, I can mimic after this person because I see that they did it and they look just like me. And so I think that's very important within the education system. So yes, my thoughts.
I don't know if you there was this video, I saw it on Instagram. There's a lady who's a very well-known ballerina, and she just went through different neighborhoods with her full dress on, and she was trying to teach the girls in the neighborhood ballet, just like right there on the street corner. It was a cool video. Misty Copeland.
Yeah, Misty Copeland. Yeah.
Copeland, thank you.
Yeah.
Brooks, man, hold it down. That question, there's a question that came up, and I just want to add that in the mix, and then you can jump in, Kyle. Was that is it important for kids to attend Black schools? Why or why not? So just add that into the convo.
Absolutely. Having had the chance to spend, I guess, the majority of my educational experience in a predominantly Black institution, I think it is critical. It's something that I'm going to look for with my child, whenever that happens. Like going to a day school all the way up through 6th grade, where the majority, I think, only had one white teacher from daycare all the way up to 6th grade, was so important. I may not have recognized it then, but just having someone who's teaching me, that looks like me, that understands my culture, that understands when we get loud, that understands how, little Black boys play, or understands, the cultural significance of, of our hair, or knows what it's like, living in our home. I mean, I honestly don't think that you can put a price on that experience. And truthfully, I mean, even the other schools that I went to, even though they weren't a majority Black, I think they've always been a majority minority. Definitely my junior high and high school, and I think Andrews, the majority is white, although they kind of teach from a Eurocentric perspective. Just being surrounded by other people who are minorities, I think, plays a huge dividend. When I went to Oakwood, one of the things that I just absolutely loved was having this opportunity to see my president, the university president, be black, to see the deans black, to see, I mean, like everyone. It wasn't just the person in the cafeteria. It wasn't just the person, working sanitation or working grounds. It was the full spectrum. And then to see, alumni, individuals that are professors, or they're working in law, they're doctors, or they're working in the entertainment industry. Like it was just a really important thing for me coming from California, to see that there is literally no limit for what we can do. And and come January, 2021, on the 20th, we're going to have an HBCU graduate working in the White House. I love the way Aaron phrased it earlier, just like, what HBCU are you going to? When I speak to someone who's younger, I definitely would love them to go to an Adventist school, but if they're black, it's like, well, we'll make sure there's an Adventist church nearby. Like, what HBCU are you going to if it's not Oakwood? Like, you need to, I just think it's so critical, it's so important to have people that understand your perspective, that are rooting for you. I mean, I don't know how many times I had professors invite me over their house, or they saw that I was struggling with something and took time out of their day to help me, And these individuals aren't getting paid a lot of money, but they're literally doing like ministry, they're doing, missionary work, serving the students there. And so if there's any opportunity for you to send your kid to a black school, I would say take it. And then if your child isn't able to attend a school that's primarily black, something that I've heard some other parents just like, whenever they're signing their kid into a new school, talking with the teacher, letting them know, like, hey, like, this is how you're going to address my kid, like off the bat, like not waiting for an incident to occur where there's like some misunderstanding upon culture. It's like, no, you have a black kid in your class. If you're not educated, you need to get educated on how to interact with them, how we're not going to let microaggressions just occur and then not be addressed. Asking maybe what school you go to, like, what do you do for Black History Month, or how do you incorporate, the inventions that minorities have done throughout the entire school year. And so I think all of that is extremely, extremely important. And I think it's just kind of built in, though, when you go to a black school. Some of those infrastructures are just already there. There's still work to be done, for sure. I wouldn't say Oakwood is perfect, or any HBCU by any measure. We all know about the many issues, long lines and all this and that. But the personal attention that you get from those schools, I think you can't buy it.
Okay, let me let Kai jump in real quick, Aaron, and then we'll get to you.
As far as education goes, the schools I went to growing up were majority minority. There weren't a lot of white kids in my schools, but I didn't have a lot of black teachers. But my teachers did make it a point to explore all different types of culture, even if they weren't represented in our classrooms. And going to Oakwood was a new experience for me because, that my school was like 30% black, 60% Latino. So the black culture that I knew was pretty similar to the one that I was already experiencing. But going to Oakwood was like, it was like going to a whole different country. There was so many nooks and crannies of African-American culture, black culture that I had never experienced, never seen before. And it just really opened my eyes, and I was able to, being from California, everything's pretty chill, everything's pretty laid back. Nobody's really like, nobody's really like into things like that. But going to Oakwood, being able to see the different struggles that people went through because they're from a different part of the country, or because their parents aren't from this country, just really opened my eyes to the vast variety of black culture that a lot of people don't see. They see us all as one. So I do think it's important to send your kids to schools where they can get, educated on their own culture, and not just their specific culture, but cultures similar to theirs, and those that are very different, because it opens up your eyes to not only fighting for your people, but for other people who are overlooked.
Yes.
Are we all from California on this? Cool.
I think so.
That's amazing. That's cool. That was points. I think all three really hit different nails on the head. I had very similar experiences to my fellow Oakwoodites here, just from being a person from California that goes to the South. But I would just say, just to keep it short and sweet, Indigenous Peoples Day is not something that we need to set aside. Christopher Columbus was a terrible person. He didn't discover America first. Africans traveled the entire globe, and they left themselves in pockets all over the world. Ancient Africans, like these are folks that were all over the entire globe. So don't let European history lies make you think that they discovered something. There were people here that that didn't have anything to do with Europeans. So it's very important that we educate ourselves and re-educate what they put into our brains. If you went to a public school, if you had that white supremacist system drilled into your head as a child, it's important to know what the Moors were that went up from North Africa and went into Europe and gave all this knowledge to the Europeans, and they just took it for their own. And it's important to know that the only thing that white people really invented was the patent office. So you have to understand that black and brown education is where you need to be because you are a black and brown person. That's what
and just one thing I'd like to add, I've heard like from youth at my church or even friends, like when we're picking schools, like, why would I want to go to an HBCU where it's nothing just black people? Like, I want to experience and I want to meet new people. Like, that's a very common refrain that everyone has, like when they go off to college. And something that someone shared with me is that, we have the rest of our lives to be in the minority. It doesn't matter where you go in this country or in this world, we're going to be in the minority. And so just taking those 4, 5, 6, however many years it takes you to get through college, enjoy being in the majority, enjoy not having to explain why your hair is in a bonnet or, explain why, you don't put peas in your potato salad. I mean, like, there's just like so many like intricacies of our culture. And so having those 4 years to not have to explain who you are, I think is just extremely valuable.
Yes. I want to echo Pastor Damien's Chandler. He said, I'm truly seeing a panel of kings and queens, and yes, I want to second that. I want to shift a little bit to talk about, we're trying to see how we can bridge this and kind of boost up the way that the church gets involved in this, because we've been talking about issues that I know that you've gotten from various aspects of your life, and has not largely been discussions and things that have been happening in church. So I want to ask this question: how involved do you think that the church, maybe your church or just church in general, how involved should we be in social justice issues, and what do you think are the effective ways for us to get to engage in those thoughts?
Well, I would kind of piggyback off of what I said earlier as far as, maybe just researching different organizations that are already, that are working towards different reforms. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can, support those who already have that organization or that program, and just, be that financial, physical support. I know within my school, I went to Washington Adventist University. So I didn't go to Oakwood, but I went to WU in Maryland, which was majority Black, actually. And so, but I know within my school, it was very liberal. Like, it wasn't conservative at all. So it's very liberal, but we addressed certain issues, as a university, where the president, the provost came out and spoke about these different things, because they seen where we were at, the location. And so as a church school or as a Christian university, we created organizations within our university to go out and help those who deal with a sense of maybe, the housing issues within DC. as far as, maybe someone has been put out their house, providing them different resources, as well. And so getting involved, seeing what your community needs. I don't believe that we could like change the world tomorrow, but we could change the community, or we can have an influence within the community around us. A lot of people will say, well, we need a leader to do this. Well, no, we're all leaders within ourselves. You leading the next person next to you is you being a leader and you having a positive impact. And so as a church, we should develop the community. Use the community around us, or, look within the community around us and say, what are the specific needs that our community needs? What are the specific issues that we need to address within our community, whether it's homelessness, whether it's, a form of poverty, whether it's, education, lack of education. I know Pastor King did a great job of hosting the tutoring program this past summer. That builds that, or decreases that gap, that achievement gap within minority kids. That's a social issue in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can reach the people within our community. We don't have to say, okay, well, let's go to the president, do this. No, we can, contact our local city council member. We can contact our local mayor. I know Mount Rubidoux, and I definitely respect, as far as what Mount Rubidoux has been doing with the community in Riverside. That's using the resources around you to make a major difference. And so we don't have to think too big. We can be more specific and saying, let's attack these issues now. And so, like I said, I want to big props to Pastor King and building that program, where I was a part of that program, and I'm still reaching out to a student who has that education gap, that achievement gap. And so it's a sense of, okay, building the community and unifying within the community around you and seeing what are those specific needs that you need to address that is right next door, and so that's a way that we can, really get involved as a church in social issues.
Also,
I'd agree with a lot of that. Working for a local politician, I'd say that having that connection with them is important for everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. You need to be connected to the person that represents you, even down to the local level. Also, I'd add that, we had some great points, but I'd also add, in terms of education, there's no reason why we can't have a school at the church. There's no reason why we can't do something similar to this, like a prayer meeting at 16th Street. I know Aaliyah will remember we had rap session with Pastor Gerald and like 50 youth. We would be in there rapping, like having just real conversations with each other. But ethnic studies needs to be a part of that. Black studies needs to be a part of that. The diaspora, all that needs to be a part of that, so they can understand that when they go back in the world, this is a war that we're dying in, and why are we dying in? Because we have this melanin, we have this thing called melanin. You know what I mean? So there's things that you have to educate ourselves with, that other people who don't have the same blessings. I don't understand that. So we really need to be educating, and then also looking towards our local electeds. If that's what we're doing for voting, we need to be keeping the people in who work for our agenda, and putting up more people that will work for our agenda. There doesn't need to be any incumbent that doesn't serve us, because they are literally public servants.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would encourage the church, I guess, to focus on three things: being present, first and foremost. So just being in the community. I think it would be extremely hard, or maybe even impossible, to help solve an issue in your community if you don't know them.
Right.
We shouldn't only know the members of our local church, when we're inviting them to a crusade. We need to be present in their lives throughout the year. The next would be learning. And, there's just so much that we can learn from organizations that have been on the ground working in these communities for years, or maybe even just a year ago. But still, I don't think, if we take the position that we have nothing to learn, then we're already, starting off in the wrong position. And then lastly is just being active. So after we're, present in the community and we're learning from others, just choosing one or two actions to really champion, and then going forth from there.
One of the things I think the church could do is really use their resources. I know there's some churches that own land next to the church and there's nothing there, or they just have a bunch of money saved up and they're not really doing anything with it, or the community outreach team kind of just chilling. They could use those resources. So if there's land next door, maybe put up a nice little building. Doesn't have to be anything spectacular, just a little building. And each year commit, the community outreach team could commit to putting somebody in the house, and putting them up, helping them get back on their feet, helping them find a job. There are plenty of professionals in the Adventist church, and being willing to share their knowledge. And there is a lot of untapped potential in the young people in the church that could, start their own organization that could help in the community. But just really taking advantage of the resources that we already have and putting them to good use.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I noticed something very interesting that happened, and it was global. Following George Floyd's murder, there was like an explosion of activity worldwide where people are, taking down statues of oppressors and all of these different things. And sometimes churches were involved, and I'm speaking the church in general, not necessarily just Adventism, but sometimes they were not really there to be found. And so I have a two-part question I want to ask. What do you think sparked that somewhat awakening or activity that was, global? And then when should the church get involved in these things? And we're kind of coming close to the end. I want to make sure everybody gets to say something. So, try to keep it concise. But what do you think sparked that? And when should the church get involved in those type of things?
Aaron can go. Okay. So I would say, as far as what sparked it, is because it was filmed, and it's in your face. So it's like, if you ignore it, then I'm questioning your character, in a sense. So it's like, if the church just ignored it, or if leaders in the church just ignored it, it's like, what do we say? What do we say about those leaders? They're leading us in a direction where we're ignoring issues that are obvious, And so I respect church leaders who said, this is what I don't agree with. And we need to stand and say, this is unacceptable. We're not going to tolerate this. And there needs to be accountability across the board for those who are involved. And so, and then the world, that world movement, in the sense of, you had, the NBA, opposing the Black Lives Matter, even the, what's called, pro baseball. I can never remember the name. There we go. But anyway, so it's like that great movement. It's because it was in your face. And so, there were some individuals who were like, okay, well, George Floyd, he deserved to whatever, and it was just ignorance, in a sense. And it was very upsetting to see that some people who consider themselves Christians, who support Trump, just ignored it too, and so I question their character as well. And so as a church, we have to be able to say, what's morally right? At the end of the day, this is not even just morally right. It's not even, forget about religion, but this is not even morally right. And so as individuals, as Christians, we have to see what is wrong and what is right, and we're going to stand up for what's right. And so, and then that movement, we're going to be a part of that movement that's right. Now, I understand that there's different agendas, I'm not going to go way off topic, but there's different agendas as far as, different movements of how to address these issues. Are we going to riot? Are we going to protest? Oh, we need to pray about it. We need to act on it. We need to vote about it. Yeah, there's different ways to address, the issue. And as a church, we need to be that leader and say, we're going to address it this way. Yes, we can pray about it, but let's take action as well. And so, and that we can be that face or that leading movement, that, that sense of, all right, well, let's look to the church for this, let's look to the pastor. What is the pastor doing? I know, the pastors are seen as those mentors or leaders, those guidance counselors, in the sense of, okay, what's next? What's the next step? And the pastor doesn't know, or if the congregation is lost, in a sense of they don't know what, we don't know what to do. How do we address this? And so I'm not going to put all the responsibility on the pastor of the church. maybe just the administrative team. And then that's also where the administration team or the pastor can say, you know what, well, who can voice their opinions on this? What are some ideas that other people within the church have to address this issue? And then opening the discussion to create feasible solutions to how do we address these problems, instead of waiting for another, I guess, entity or any other leader to address the problems. We need to address it head first, wait. And so instead of waiting for others to say, you know what, okay, now it's a big problem. Since they addressed it, now it's a big issue. No, we have to address it first. We shouldn't wait for everyone else to address it, all the other movements to address it for us to say something about it. No, we need to be the first ones to do it, since we should, since we are the ones who should be the light, the light of the world, in a sense. So, so I believe just as, pastors, as church members, as Christians, we need to address it head on instead of waiting for others to address it first.
Gotcha. All right, others, real quick, but.
Sure. I just want to say everyone should read Deuteronomy 28. It gives a really good knowledge of what the curse was that was put on God's people and the blessings that were supposed to be put on God's people. But Deuteronomy 28, definitely read that chapter. It's like 78 verses, but it's good. It's good knowledge to know. I also say that this isn't a new problem. This is a very old problem, and it's been happening. I see somebody put in the chat, Rodney King. This has been happening. George Floyd was important because it was filmed, and I think because of the pandemic, a lot of people were home, and it just made this perfect storm, this perfect powder keg, and into something beautiful of protesting and learning your rights, and just saying no to the system of white supremacy, which is great. I love that. We need to be cognizant of where we are. This is the last days. We need to be aware of that. We need to know that we're a blessed people, and it's time to just wake up. That's seriously just time to wake up. We are too old to be in the same traditions, and that doesn't. I'm not knocking the church or anything, but sometimes we look at the traditions a little bit too much. We need to be a people that is awake and educated about ourselves, because who else is going to teach us that? So that's all I would say.
Awesome.
Aaron hit like exactly what I was going to say. I think only because of the pandemic did the world respond to George Floyd in this manner. Because just like from undergrad, like there have been tons of times where we've been out in the streets, we've protested, we've laid in, done marches, but the world literally was like paused. Like people weren't. It was like in the early part of the pandemic, like when like no one was working unless it was essential, and so we've seen people killed on videotape, unfortunately, many of times. But there wasn't a football game that you could watch to draw your attention. There wasn't a new show or crazy thing happening that could draw your attention. Like on nonstop repeat, like the video was playing on the news, and that could be triggering and depressing for us as a people. Just very traumatic. But I think it also caused a lot of our brothers and sisters of a different race, or maybe not even those who support us, but just you couldn't get away from it. You couldn't deny this blatant tragedy that occurred, and you can ignore the fact that it's systemic. It's something that's built into our country and our culture. Also, I think Donald Trump being president maybe played a part of it. We've had, I guess it's been 2 or 3 years of his leadership, and just seeing people be blatantly racist and hateful. And so I think there was, the counteract to it. People have already been, in the streets protesting, but now it's like, we're not letting, people have been organized specifically against him and other charities, the Black Lives Matter movement. And so I think all of this really did help. But the pandemic, I think played the biggest role, because otherwise, it would have just been another news story that would have died 7 days later.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that a worldwide pandemic had to be the reason for other people to see that Black Lives Matter.
Wow. Yeah. Hi.
I definitely agree. Video of George Floyd was something that you could not get away from. Everywhere. When you open social media, they're being reposted, retweeted. So that was one of the reasons that it blew for sure. in regards to when is it appropriate for us to step in? It's appropriate for the church to step in anytime there's something that goes against what Christ said. That's when the church step in. Whenever there's something that doesn't exemplify love but exemplifies hate, that's when the church should step in, because we are supposed to be the leaders in love. We're supposed to be the leaders in peace and in justice. So anytime those things are not happening, that's when we need to step up.
Yeah. Look, man, collective mic drop. I got nothing more to add. Y'all done tore the place up. So Dale, come back on. Take us home, brother.
All right, here we go, everybody. Am I able to be heard? Did I take my mute off? That's the
We hear you. We hear you.
Year unmute. But man, this has been awesome. It's been rich, as you guys have been able to see in the comments, that people were really connecting to the things that you were saying and the ways that you were saying, and you are all. I'm so pleased that God led me to pick all of you. Man, you all good. Excellent. I so appreciate you, Aaron. So appreciate you, Kyle. So appreciate you, Aaliyah. So appreciate you, Kai. Even with that janky Wi-Fi down there. We work on helping them out at the HBCUs, get their technology up. But it was great. It was great. We appreciate all of you. I'm going to take you all off screen now so y'all can breathe and all that kind of good stuff. But thank you. I should keep you on just for a little while longer, Kai. You know? Oh man, this is great. We so appreciate everyone who've been in the chat, connecting and just keeping the conversation going. And that's what happens. This is what happens around the table. It's what the table is for, place of conversation, and it's something we want to be able to continue doing. But that was what we were doing tonight, welcoming you to the table. And now on tomorrow night, I want to invite in our brother Damian Chandler.
What's up? What's up?
What we can expect.
Oh, man, I am so excited. Can you hear me, or am I good? Yeah. Man, I am so excited about what happened just now, dude. Like, that was crazy.
Wow.
That was nuts. Like, yeah. I hear people say all the time that the church is in danger and we don't know what they're going to do. Well, let me tell you what the millennials are going to do. What I can't wait to get out of the way, because that lady Aaliyah, she was dangerous. and Kyle and Aaron and Kyle, my God, that I cannot imagine what it would be like and what would happen if we were watching them lead the church in the way that God would tell them to lead the church. I am excited. I'm excited. So I hope that you were blessed on tonight. I hope that you heard what God was trying to say to us through our millennials. And I want you to go into the chat and let them know. I mean, if you were blessed, don't be silent. Go ahead and put it in the chat and let them know. Well, the West Coast Collaborative has been a group of pastors that got together all on the West Coast and said, listen, it is too difficult to do ministry alone. We don't want to do life or ministry by ourselves. We've been meeting for months and planning for this week, and we hope that you have been blessed. And if you have been blessed, the only thing that we need you to do is to tell somebody. So last night we had the prayer experience with prayer warriors from across the West Coast. I believe that from heaven, the West Coast was lit. God could literally see the light shining on the West. And then on tonight, our millennials took the stage and they just said, listen, later for silence, we got work to do. And I as a pastor, accept that charge. Now, tomorrow night, Friday night, we're going to be in my bag, because Friday night is going to be a worship experience like you haven't worshiped since we've been in the pandemic. You're going to lift your hands. I want you to bring your dancing shoes. We're going to shout. We're going to cry. We're going to testify. Tomorrow night, we have our virtual concert. It is called Night of Worship now. And so on tomorrow night, I need you to bring a friend. Please, I need you to bring a friend. I need you to bring a brother, a sister, drag somebody. I need you to get the lawn chairs and take out the projector and set it up. I need you to clean out the couch, vacuum underneath the cushions, and get ready for an outpour of God's Spirit. It's going to be music from across the country, moments that were all created during this COVID time that have blessed our souls. And I'm going to be joined by Michael Bennett and our co-host, Michael Bennett and Jillian Monet. She's going to be in the house as well. So Delroy, I am so excited. I am so excited about what God is going to do on tomorrow night.
Amen. And we are excited too. 7 p.m. on whatever way you connected with us tonight. We invite you to join us on the West Coast Worship Collaborative Facebook page, but you can go to the YouTube and Facebook pages of all our collaborative churches. We're asking everybody to share it with somebody else. Be with us again tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Make sure you got a good internet connection and a running room, and you will indeed be blessed. That's it for us tonight. You know what? I started this thing by just shoving everybody in, and we didn't have a word of prayer. So I want to pray for us now to close. So if you don't mind, let's have a word of prayer, everybody. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for this opportunity to have been able to talk, share, hear, learn, and listen. Now, God, we pray that you would be with us and everyone else who's been connected to this awesome night around the table. In your name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you, everybody. We are done here for tonight. Bye. Brother Damien, you stick by.